On today's Movie Talk, we've got an Indiana Jones 5 script update for you. On top of that, we are asking the question, how much Star Wars is too much Star Wars? And then, of course, we can't wrap this episode without talking about that Batman casting news, all on today's Movie Talk. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Heroes and Villains episode of Collider Movie Talk. We've got quite the lineup. We've got Silas and Coy on the desk today, and right now we've got an epic call sheet for you. Kicking this off with a little something about The Irishman. So, the producer of the movie, Jane Rosenthal, recently told Deadline that Martin Scorsese's latest is actually going to be a slower movie, and also that it's going to have an introspective quality to it. Here's the quote. What you do look at with something like The Irishman is the toxic masculinity and what happens when someone chooses one family over their own nuclear family and then tries to make repairs at the end of their lives. What happens to particularly men who make that decision. Moving on over now to that Indiana Jones 5 update teased at the top of the show, we have a recent interview with Den of Geek that revealed that Crystal Skull screenwriter David Koepp is working on the Indiana Jones franchise yet again. As for the status of Indiana Jones 5, here's what Koepp said. We're still trying, and I think we've got a good idea this time. We'll see. Now for that big burning Star Wars question, this is where it came from. Disney CEO Bob Iger told the New York Times that when it comes to Star Wars, I just think that we might have put a little bit too much in the marketplace too fast. He also stated, I think the storytelling capabilities of the company are endless because of the talent we have at the company, and the talent we have at the company is better than it's ever been, in part because of the influx of people from Fox. Stay tuned because we're talking about this one more later on today's show. Next up now, soon after debuting at TIFF 2019, we've got the first full trailer for the Safdie brothers' new movie. It's Uncut Gems, and it stars Adam Sandler. According to the official synopsis of the movie, Sandler plays Howard Ratner, a New York City jeweler who makes a series of high-stakes bets that could lead to the windfall of a lifetime. We're going to share our thoughts on the trailer later on today's show as well. Next up, the two big Batman casting stories. THR is reporting that Jeffrey Wright could be our new Commissioner Gordon, and Collider's own Jeff Snyder is reporting that Jonah Hill is currently in talks to play a villain in the movie, possibly the Riddler. Before we move into our panel discussions, we've got a very special Downton Abbey video to share, because what's better than a corgi asking two of the stars from Downton some questions? Check it out.
Hi, I'm Alan Leach.
I'm Hugh Bonneville. We're from Downton Abbey, and we're here with
Collider and Hand and Paw to talk about Downton, the movie that comes out on the 20th of September.
No, to talk about the dogs, Alan. The dogs.
Oh, sorry, to talk with the dogs.
It's all about the dogs, and we're going to be interviewed by Ellie.
Hello, I'm Ellie. Now I have to know, who dropped the most food on set?
Great question, Ellie. Myself and Hugh used to get in trouble for always feeding the dogs extra sausages.
Like all good dogs and actors, we do it for treats. The dogs just lived for the in the breakfast scenes for the little tidbits of bacon and sausage that disappeared off the edge of the table. What's your preferred food, Ellie?
Yeah.
Bacon.
Bacon.
Excellent choice.
Good call. Good call.
Who smelled the best on set?
You actually.
I
You
do.
always smell very
I always
good.
smell the best. I like to mix it up with different scents, like eau de dog. You are so sweet. You are just very calm and quiet.
I've got a bone to pick. Who's the bigger piece of Shih Tzu?
Ellie, wash your mouth out with soap.
Yeah.
We don't use such
No
language on
treats
Downton
for
Abbey.
you.
What kind of dog would you be?
I think I'd be some kind of mix, terrier mix. Scrappy.
Yeah. I'd like to be a Tibetan Terrier because then people would think I was very intelligent, even though I might be really, really stupid.
That's just what you played in the show, right?
Yeah.
What's up, Collider video fans? Josh McCouga here. I'm the host of a brand new show on Collider called The Rumor Mill. Now, we're live every single Wednesday at 2 p.m., but we're live on the Collider.
Oh, hi. Guess what? If you want to watch the full Downton Dog video, it's up on the YouTube channel. So after you finish with this episode of Movie Talk, check it out. It is so much fun. Ellie is the best. All right. Panel number 1 today. This is a big topic to discuss, and I'm so happy to welcome Silas and Coy to the show today. So I was freaking out yesterday. I'm like, oh my God, there's no big news. We haven't had big casting news in a little while. And then all of a sudden, not one, but 2, the Batman casting stories broke, and we get to talk about it today.
But first, is Downton Dog a yoga pun? Like downward dog. Was that on purpose? Because I'd like to know.
We didn't think about
Down
that
dog,
part of it.
right?
No,
Like when you down dog. Okay,
all
well,
of
now
our
it is.
creative juices went to creating dog pun questions for the wonderful Ellie to ask in that interview.
Accidentally all a dog pun when you go Downton Dog.
Oh God. No, all right, you're making my brain spin out of control, and we haven't even had a conversation yet.
The Batman.
Let's talk a little bit about these 2 Batman casting reports. So, as I said earlier, Jeffrey Wright is being eyed to play Commissioner Gordon via THR, and then our own Jeff Snyder is reporting that Jonah Hill is in talks to play a villain in the Batman, and a source tells him that it'll be the Riddler. Let's start with Jeffrey Wright. First, we've seen a number of iterations of Commissioner Gordon on screen, so what is it about Jeffrey Wright that best suits that role and could make it something a little different?
His voice. There's something so interesting about Jeffrey Wright. He's got this presence, and if you're on a rooftop next to Batman, you have to be very interesting to hold the screen. And I think he is. I think he's always got that certain level of gruff charisma. He's also extremely intelligent, and he really has a screen presence to keep up with Batman. And Commissioner Gordon's extremely important. I'd say he's right up there with Alfred as far as none of them really superpowered, but non-powered characters in the Batman universe. You have to be something really special. So I think it's great that they're going for someone that has the presence, has the intelligence, has the ability to read like someone who made Commissioner way too fast and is now dealing with this Gotham corruption.
All right, are you all for this casting, Silas?
Absolutely. I think there's a real human side to Jeffrey Wright that is great. It's part of Commissioner Gordon, and it's not really Commissioner Gordon we've seen a lot in the movies. I kind of am as fascinated by his home life and him struggling as a citizen of Gotham as much as the police commissioner.
He's got like an inherent sensitivity to
Yeah.
him too that I really appreciate. Not that I keep thinking about the Goldfinch, but I continued listening to the audiobook. So it's just hearing this casting news and then listening to Hobie's part in the audiobook, and I'm still picturing Jeffrey Wright, and the fact that he's able to pop even in a movie like that doesn't really come together very well. I applaud him all day long. Obviously, he's incredible in Westworld too.
It's also kind of cool that he's in Eternals. He's
Yeah.
doing DC and Marvel at the same time.
Oh, he can go into that group now. All right.
Yeah, he's
all
in
right.
What If. He's Uatu. He's the Watcher.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that as well.
Yeah. So he's everywhere, and
very
he's
busy.
also the kind of actor that when you see him in something, he's a that guy. And I hate to say it, like in the industry, we all know Jeffrey Wright, but outside of it, I imagine he's one of those actors that you see him in a project and there's a certain like validity to it. Like when they announced this name for me, it was like, oh, the Batman's going that direction. They're getting this type of pedigree, and I think that he's going to bring. You could have scenes with just Commissioner Gordon now. You can actually see Barbara Gordon and Commissioner Gordon in their home. You can see the Gordon family and not be like, when's Batman coming back?
Do you think that's going to happen, though, in a movie titled The Batman?
I think they're going to be building a different kind of Gotham film. I think this is going to be a detective story, and with a detective Batman, you need a Commissioner Gordon that feels versed. You need Batman doing something the cops aren't doing, so you need to know the cops to know what the cops aren't doing. You need to believe in the police force's failings for you to believe in the vigilante actually going forward. And Matt Reeves only builds worlds that are more than one-sided. Like you cared about the humans slightly less than the
good
apes.
point.
So the apes being more of the leads of the apes films means you need to know who the cops are to really be invested in the Bat.
Maybe I just have Joker on the brain, but I keep envisioning this Batman movie as being like purely from Batman's perspective.
I feel like I think Arkham means they need more police stuff. I feel like Commissioner Gordon. I feel like there's gonna be a lot more cop stuff.
Well, actually, this brings in our other casting news, because if Jonah Hill is interested in stepping in as a villain and it's the Riddler, I imagine it must be a fairly substantial role. So now that I'm actually thinking about it, I might be more willing to believe that it's going to be largely from Batman's perspective, but maybe even more from the Riddler's perspective than scenes with Commissioner Gordon and no Batman in the mix. Does that make any sense to you guys?
I feel like it's going to be the Riddler fooling the police, and they need to send the Batman in, and it's a bunch of like things at Arkham. I feel like Arkham's going to be. We heard that a few years ago, and I still think it's true. But I think it's going to be the Riddler guiding Batman on a series of quests, and then the police can't solve it. So I think it's going to be. And that's how you have all these villains. That's how you have the Riddler as a lead. That's why you get Jonah Hill. You need an actor of repute, and I think Jonah Hill's. Before we even dive in, I think Jonah Hill's a fantastic choice because now they can play it in a very different way. You don't do the Jim Carrey route. You do a narcissistic post-millennial Mark Zuckerberg, almost what Lex Luthor became, but not that. And you make it this story about this guy that's jealous of Batman, and you make it about his brain being overwrought with all these thoughts, and he wants to prove he's smarter than Batman. He's the smartest guy. He wants to do this thing, and I can totally see Jonah Hill doing that. And all these Penguin rumors are silly because Jonah's been skinny for a very long time.
Do you think that story structure could be the way that they're going to go with this?
Yes. However, I don't think he's the Riddler.
Oh.
I was trying to
Throwing a
make sense.
curveball in the mix. I wasn't ready for that.
You know, this thing happens, and I wonder if it's so inside baseball that people aren't aware. But whenever a story breaks in the trades, every other trade likes to jump on Twitter and sort of say, "Well, I had that story, and I also know this bit. And I didn't write it up, and I didn't post it in time, but I also heard this." And there was a lot of that happening last night, and a lot of people throwing out things that were kind of weird. Some of them said like, "Oh, well, the role hasn't been decided yet." That Jonah Hill was actually the first one to be in talks, but the role hasn't been determined. And that's weird because, I mean, Matt Reeves is writing and directing this movie. He clearly knows the story he's telling.
Wait, as in he was in talks for a role and they haven't specified what role it's going to be?
Yeah.
Like he just wanted to join the movie and say like, whatever you guys decide for me, cool?
Hey guys, I'd like to be in the Batman. Okay, thanks.
And I have no inside information here, but when I first heard this movie was happening with Matt Reeves, the rumor going around was that it was Long Halloween and that it was potentially a Long Halloween trilogy. And the basis for Long Halloween is that there are these crimes being committed on holidays. Batman goes to talk to Calendar Man, who isn't responsible for the crimes, but because they're being committed on holidays, has figured out who the criminal is. And it's kind of this Hannibal Lecter back and forth. And through that, ends up interacting with every other villain on different holidays throughout the year. I feel like Calendar Man makes a lot of sense for Jonah Hill. He's a character that you kind of think of as a joke, but if you did it seriously, it could be really scary. That's Jonah Hill. But I kind of wonder if this idea of we haven't even decided the role isn't the studio saying, why Calendar Man? We're about to make $100 million with a Joker movie. If you made him the Riddler,
I think that's exactly. I think they're going to make the Long Halloween with the Riddler. I think the Calendar Man, the character, I don't think it's going to try. I think they're going to use the Calendar Man story with the Riddler as the Calendar Man, which would work.
I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but there was a very recent Batman adaptation that did exactly that. Took a character that was not the Riddler and turned it into the Riddler.
And the War of Jokes and Riddles recently really showed that the Riddler can be a foil to Batman and a lot of other rogues. Like the way the Riddler was handled with Tom King, you can really have the Riddler be a pseudo lead. And if you're going to pay Jonah Hill the reported $10 million, the guy's got some screen time. Like whether or not that's true, it's just you don't cast Jonah Hill to be a side part. Jonah Hill's been killing it. And if you haven't seen mid-90s, he's a brilliant filmmaker as well as an actor. And he doesn't... Everyone still sees him as super bad. I feel like he's one of those actors that people haven't let be.
Not even necessarily super bad, but he did kind of build a name for himself based on comedy roles.
Yeah, but like Wolf of Wall Street and like War Pigs, War Dogs, War
Dogs.
War Dogs, the other Todd
Phillips. He's definitely amassed a number of titles to his name at this point to validate the fact that he has great range and so much skill in front of and behind the lens. But especially when a movie's like, I mean, Superbad's coming of age, like iconic movie. Yeah. That's not even necessarily something you want to shake.
And then his little sister in Booksmart, which is so great. I love
know.
that.
It makes me so happy.
The new generation.
You remember what I was reading on the way to Amazing Comic-Con Las Vegas for Long Halloween?
That's true.
Yeah, because
that's right.
I actually think you were on that episode, and we were talking about the possibility of this movie falling in line with that storyline, and I felt the urgency to actually read it. I have a feeling, like I'm kind of tempted by what you're saying here, and I think this would actually validate Jeff's scoop in a way. I mean, yeah, the story structure would make him Calendar Man, but can you blame them for wanting to turn that character into the Riddler, especially if, what if he got a really big payday for this movie and was a very important part, but maybe didn't have as much screen time, but maybe Jonah Hill was getting in on the game, so I don't know, maybe the Riddler could have his own standalone movie at some point, like the Joker.
Well, the Joker in The Dark Knight barely had screen time. People, like, you remember The Dark Knight as being a Joker movie, but if you actually look at his screen time, it's like 18 minutes or something crazy. He's just always a presence when he's there. So I could definitely see the Riddler or whoever Jonah ends up playing being that kind of presence where it just like cuts through the screen, is so important, and then just wee.
So what are the big roles left to cast now? Is there anybody you're really looking forward to hearing who they pick?
I mean, it's the Batman. He's got the best rogues gallery. Like, him
Yeah.
and Spidey have everybody. Like, those are the two for me, the two
So
rogues.
we're still running with the assumption that even though it was just rumored, Penguin and Catwoman, you know, very familiar villains like that, they are still in the mix.
So my big question is, like, is the idea of Matt Reeves doing a trilogy still on the table? And officially it's not. Officially he's just doing one movie. But the early stories were he's doing a trilogy. And if he is doing a trilogy and it is a single adaptation, the idea that you could do something like Long Halloween and have 4 villains per movie and tell a like 9-hour movie over 3 films and cast 12 different Batman villains is pretty exciting.
I mean, that's impossibly ambitious, and I'm all for it, like maddening ambition. So that's what I want to see. I don't know if they'll let someone make a third of a trilogy without the next one being on the film docket. Like, I don't know if you'd be like, all right, here's a cliffhanger. Hope he comes back. Like, I don't know if that like would be the way they do it, but if they announce suddenly that this is way more to come, I'm all about it.
Is that even possible? Like, let's say whether it's 2 films or a trilogy and it's adapting Long Halloween, it's like, where do you end each movie so it doesn't feel like you have to watch the next one? This first one is still a satisfying and full experience.
Well, Long Halloween has that great ticking clock built in where it starts on Halloween and continues for a full year, and major events happen on holidays.
Yeah, you started Halloween, you end on Christmas. You have it end on another major holiday where he feels like he solved a thing, but there's more to come. You know, the end of Batman Begins has the Joker card flip, and you know there's more to come.
It's almost like a little bit of an anthology quality to it.
Yeah, I would love that.
Hey, it would be something different, and I feel like that's kind of what we're applauding right now with the big franchises. It's like, no matter how you feel about Joker in the end, they freaking swung for the fences. They did something that we've never seen before, and if that's the approach that they take to the Batman, I'm all for it.
It's the Batman. What better property to risk something than a 3-picture deal with the Batman? Like, you don't have to worry about anything. And DC's taking these risks. I do it with the most well-known property.
I also think Matt Reeves is a guy that, I mean, like, War for the Planet of the Apes is a movie where the primary actors are motion capture, and the primary language that used is American Sign Language. And that's pretty crazy for a summer blockbuster.
What he achieved with that franchise was really, really something else.
To answer your first question, I want to see Mr. Freeze handled seriously. I'd really want to see the ventriloquist. I think that'd be fantastic. I think that would translate really well to film. I'd love to see the characters that we had in Batman and Robin taken seriously, like a real Poison Ivy, like those characters that have this like hokey quality, and then maybe go into rogues we haven't seen. But to be honest, kind of validating the characters that people think is jokes and then fixing the ones we haven't seen would be my route.
I'm into it. I love how many possibilities are on the table right now. Anything you want to add, Silas, before we move on?
I honestly, so Long Halloween has a direct sequel called Dark Victory that was done right after. And in Dark Victory, they introduced Robin, and it's a really well-told issue. I would love to see that brought in. I like the idea that Batman is such a cold and distant character, and yet he grows to have one of the biggest families in the DC universe.
What's the story structure of Dark Victory? Does it completely obviously go away from maybe the calendar approach?
It does, but it ties back to some plot elements. I mean, one of the things that's cool about Long Halloween and why it makes a lot of sense for a movie is it was designed as a sequel to Frank Miller's Batman Year One. So it's sort of like, if you're looking at classic Batman stories and you don't want to do an origin story, this is the very next story.
Which ties into what we've definitely heard and the age of Robert Pattinson and all the other things. It works for all those. And I hope that since we're going so youngish, we get the seeds for Hush. I'd love to meet someone that's young and he's like a very akin to Bruce that can evolve, or Court of Owls or something down the line. But I think starting with Long Halloween and then having the option for those things later would be amazing.
So many possibilities.
So much Batman
and
hype.
as we hear more casting news on the Batman, which hopefully there is going to be more sometime soon, we're going to cover it right here on Movie Talk. All right, topic number 2 today. This is a big one. So this all comes from the quotes that we teased earlier in the show from Disney CEO Bob Iger regarding the fact that he had said something along the lines of, we released too much Star Wars too soon. So that is the question I want to pose to you guys first, specifically as it pertains to Star Wars. Do you think that is the case? Do you think that they released too much too soon, and that's why the film franchise is in the position it is right now?
Yes and no. I think if Solo had been a really, really great movie, nobody would be saying this. It did feel weird to go from Last Jedi to just a few months later having a Han Solo movie. And the big thing with Solo was it wasn't a movie anybody wanted. Nobody wanted to see a young Han Solo movie. But everybody said, oh, well, Phil Lord and Chris Miller have a track record of taking things that you don't want to see and making them into something you do. And then when that all fell apart, it was sort of like, oh, we're just going to kind of have this reheated movie that we didn't want to see in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we had one Solo movie instead of two movies mushed together, I think we'd be in a better spot. Like if you had a style of film instead of the Ron Howard, like, this is a neutral, and then the Phil Lord and Chris Miller fingerprints over this neutral movie, I think that set a really strange tone in Star Wars, where we'd gone from these bold choices into this, like, sure was a summer. And it also being a summer movie definitely felt off because it was 6 months after another movie, and it wasn't. I feel like Star Wars owns the holidays. It owns that Christmas season. So to have it kind of just like, it felt like you were running and you just hit a rock. You're like, oh no, and it just threw things off. I don't think it was too many. I just think it threw us askew because Marvel puts out 3 movies a year. It's not like there's an abundance
But
problem.
they didn't at the very beginning.
True, but Star Wars is known.
Star Wars is known, but Star Wars came back after so many years of not being on the big screen, and it came back under a new regime with a whole bunch of new lead characters. I do feel like it kind of maybe needed to find its footing a little more, but I think I'm a little more in line with what you just said, Silas. The fact that I didn't really like Solo very much, and I do think that put a little bit of a damper on it. And of course, we can't ignore the fact that The Last Jedi, it basically sparked a major divide in the fandom. So the fact that those 2 movies came out right around the same time, I definitely don't think it helped. But, just to play around with the idea a little bit, thinking... So I love Rogue One. I don't want to wipe Rogue One off the map by any means, but what if we did get Force Awakens and then we had to, let's say, wait 2 years or whatever the gap was, 3 years for Last Jedi, and they kind of just reused that huge amount of anticipation waiting for the big event movie rather than trying to fill in the gaps with, maybe stories that people didn't not want, but people didn't know they wanted. I just wonder if spreading it out and letting the buzz build at the very beginning, finishing out this trilogy of movies, and then jumping into different forms of storytelling might have been the better route.
I mean, hindsight's always going to be 2020, but I feel like Marvel had Iron Man and Incredible Hulk in 1 year, and even though Incredible Hulk wasn't great, it didn't throw things off. I mean, that was in 2008. It had 2 movies. So Marvel kicked off with 2 films in 2008, like right away. And then they went to another, and then they escalated to 3. So
it was a different time, though.
But it's still...
It was a different time, and there was a lot less blockbuster competition, too.
There was. And there was a lot less time. Like, when they started this, then everyone wanted to do the thing they were doing. So now these movies are trying to keep up with multiple films a year. So I don't know if people would have wanted a 3-year gap between Star Wars, if that would have built momentum or diminished it. But I don't think we can possibly know without knowing what Solo could have been.
It's almost like what we talk about, though, when it comes to the abundance of streaming services and TV programming that none of us can keep up with anymore, because it's not like it's this one big franchise that you got to make sure you see that movie every single year. Everyone's trying to do it, whether we're talking about Star Wars, DC on this show, Marvel, Indiana Jones is trying to continue. We even have Halloween. Halloween released a movie in 2018. We're getting 2 more fairly soon. It's just like it seems like every major studio with their big franchises is assuming the mentality like fast, now, don't let anybody forget our property. And I mean, the truth of the matter is there is not enough money to go around. And I think that might freak many people out.
I feel like the closer parallel than Marvel would be Fast and the Furious, because Hobbs and Shaw is like your Rogue One. It's a spin-off. It's trying to start its own thing. It's its own little side universe, but it's in between sequels, right? It's in between Fast 8 and Fast 9. I don't think Hobbs and Shaw is going to affect the performance of Fast 9, and it's something that held us over in between the two. It's a similar thing where it's like placeholder, and it was still did gangbusters. It's this giant movie that didn't separate, but also was very clearly not a Fast and the Furious film. So I think that's more of the line they're walking, and I think they did it fine.
Silas, what's the answer? How do you crack the franchise puzzle here?
I think we will be in a better place after episode 9 comes out. And I say that regardless of what episode 9 is or whether people like it or not. It's just Star Wars as a franchise is going up against the J.J. Abrams mystery box, where there's a lot of mystery pretty much from Return of the Jedi on. There are decades of the Star Wars universe that we don't know a lot about and aren't going to learn about until after this trilogy is done. And that's kind of hard to continue with. And it clashes with the like sort of commercialization of Star Wars, where it's like next week is the Triple Force Friday. And it's like, go to the store and buy a bunch of figures for a movie that you have not seen and we're not going to tell you anything about and you'll get to see in a few months. And there is a level where you sort of like look at yourself and you're like, oh, I am a big fan, but why am I doing this?
Well, that's a fair point. I mean, it's really upsetting how it all comes down to like just shelling out more money. It's like, as you described, that, you know, it's hard not to fear the reverse engineering thing of, you know, designing a cool character to sell the toys while the characters are still in the mystery box. And then you see the movie and then they don't pan out to be what you had hoped, which is why I have too many Phasma things.
Some sort of conflict faced in the stars. You're feeling a conflict about these celestial characters, a Star Wars you're experiencing.
So the other thing that I wanted to bring up from this Bob Iger interview, or the quotes that he had been giving. So he also said another thing about Disney possibly buying Twitter, and I found it very interesting. So I just wanted to throw that in the mix. So here is what he had said on that topic. The troubles were greater than I wanted to take on, greater than I thought it was responsible for us to take on. There were Disney brand issues, the whole impact of technology on society. The nastiness is extraordinary. I like looking at my Twitter newsfeed because I want to follow 15, 20 different subjects. Then you turn and look at your notifications and you're immediately saying, why am I doing this? Why do I endure this pain? Why am I laughing? Like a lot of these platforms, they have the ability to do a lot of good in our world. They also have an ability to do a lot of bad. I didn't want to take that on. That is like a very what's the phrase, rose-colored glasses view of Twitter. It's like, it can do so much good in the world, but why is everybody saying nasty things to me?
It truly can. It's this amazing connective tool. We gave everyone like a free texting device. We gave everyone in the world a cell phone to talk to each other, and we use it to be dicks. It doesn't make, I mean, it makes sense because humans are awful, but it doesn't make sense for the ability that it has. I totally agree with him, and I wouldn't take it on either. Can you imagine being like, oh, I own this cesspool? Like, why would you buy a cesspool?
Oh, I don't know. I think that's going to be one of the next phases, though, is big companies like this aligning themselves with a very specific social media platform and trying to take it over. I mean, could you imagine what kind of marketing tool Twitter would become if Disney owned it? Like, you would not be able to stop them.
They're gonna have to invent new laws. Like, there will have to be new monopoly laws about owning social medias, because if you own something that controls speech, then that's therefore a freedom of speech issue. And if it's a branded speech issue, I can't imagine the ramifications.
I mean, are any laws like that in place right now, though? Now is the time to weasel your way in and grab one.
I think that's true. That's a terrifying thought. Actually, that's how Skynet activates. Is you have a social media format that convinces people this is the answer, and it lets you like let AI move around and then like take it over.
Yeah, I mean, not like this would actually happen with Facebook, but like think about Facebook's original programming that they're trying to launch. If they join forces with a more established media company, maybe that could give them the boost they need to actually compete with some of the new ones coming out, like, I don't know, a Disney Plus or Apple Plus TV, whatever it is.
But like a streaming service teaming up with a social media service, Facebook tried. Like, they tried to do their Facebook video content, but Facebook is owned by like everyone. I think like more people than not have Facebook by a large margin. If you have the internet, you probably have Facebook, which is terrifying.
A little bit.
Kind of respect Disney for like realizing that it's too powerful to touch. It kind of reminds me of like Galadriel when Frodo offers her the ring and she like sees herself becoming this powerful witch king.
That's amazing. I love that like visual. And it's the bird. He's like, no, can't do the tweets. But it's a very dangerous thing. I love the idea of like too much power. I can't wield it.
I want to pose a question. This is so random and kind of out of left field, but we were talking yesterday about the evolution of streaming platforms and the idea of, you know, how password sharing is becoming a big problem. What streaming services could do to encourage people to make sure that they have their own account. And again, this is a terrible example, but the Twitter thing did make me think about it a little, is, you know, adding like a chat thing, or if you watch X amount of movies from this filmmaker, you get a badge or something like that. Is there any layer you would add to the streaming service functionality that could make it a must own for you alone, where you would not want to share that with somebody else?
Ready Player One-esque character customization. I'd want to be a certain figure, and then I wouldn't want to share that. It's mine. It's my guy. But like fully mod out a character and then have your badges come from you. Like you earned the things while it looks like you or looks like whatever you want to.
Well, now I'm almost thinking like, let's say Netflix meets Pokemon Go,
I wanna
and
collect
you've got the avatar, and there is some sort of collecting points building.
I got
type
a David
thing.
Fincher mon, and you get them all. You like once you watch all the Finchers on your service, then you've got them. And maybe there's quizzes. Maybe there's proving your knowledge. I think proving knowledge is something that everyone wants to do. So after you watch something, and then you build up those merit points. That way you're not sharing someone else's knowledge.
You got me thinking about it though by basically calling Twitter free text messaging. So it's like if that was kind of like mushed into Disney and mushed into Disney Plus, and there's some piece to Twitter that could have given them over there something that, let's say, Amazon, Netflix, and other streaming services don't have.
Well, if you think about Twitter, it's like when we were kids, there was encyclopedias for knowledge. Now we can share those by just sending them out. Like that amount of knowledge is actually incalculable, what we can do with this tool instead of just harassing famous people. So it's really strange that we have this tool that is all this knowledge, but we never see that side of it because we're on film Twitter. I never see any like healthy discourse. I mute a lot. So it's really interesting that we'd have a major corporation look at that and not be able to see the merits in it. Like they have infinite power, and instead of being like, we can harness it, they're like, it's just really mean. And so I don't know if anyone will ever want to harness the mean. It's too much.
I'm not a religious person at all, but I think Twitter is like the perfect parallel for the Tower of Babel story. Like the idea of building something so great that it challenged God, but then it falls apart and it just becomes this discourse where nobody understands one another. It's like, that's Twitter.
That's a great parallel.
Yeah, I've never thought about it that way.
Metaphors in a row.
Woo, all right. Yeah, what better way to move on from that topic? Thanks, Silas. Before we talk a little bit about that Uncut Gems trailer, though, I got to remind you, this is a Heroes and Villains episode of Collider Movie Talk. If you're a fan of brands like Star Wars, Star Trek, X-Men, Batman, so many more, then you have to go over to heroesvillains.com, because that's where this cool t-shirt came from. I like that one quite a bit.
Right?
I like
So
that one
cool.
quite.
I love the subtlety of color, and like you'd have to, if you know Star Wars, you know it, but it's also, I don't feel like I'm like yelling it.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous if I'm being honest, but I'm pretty sure that one only came
Also
to us
on
in men's size.
heroesandvillains.com, and then also the dude's medium.
But I'm quite happy with this too.
I mean, it's
Rebel
rad.
Scum.
It
yeah.
looks like an old school like 80s football jersey, like
I'm
that
all
flavor
for it.
of I
If you
respect
like these t-shirts, if you like that jacket I was wearing the other day, which is super cool, we have a promo code for you that you could use at checkout. It's Talk15. Just put that in there when you fill your cart with lots of good stuff and check out, and then you get 15% off your order. So enjoy that, guys. We're going to show off some more of the Heroes and Villains lineup all week on Collider Video, so check it out. All right, Uncut Gems. I'm still bitter about this because I missed it at TIFF. It's incredible how many hours I can force myself to be awake and just like take in as much material as possible, and I still can't hit every single movie on my lineup, and this was one of the ones I missed, but I'm happy to see it got a good trailer. I mean, it makes me even madder at myself that I missed it, but it's a great trailer. I can't wait to see the movie. How do you guys feel about it?
I'm excited. I mean, the buzz coming out was that this is probably an Oscar nomination for Adam Sandler, and Adam Sandler's one of those guys where like I don't like a lot of his movies, but I do really like him. I've gotten to interview him a couple times, and he is one of the just friendliest people that like legitimately wants to speak to you before the interview begins and wants to know who you are. And I also love Punch Drunk Love, and the idea that another movie could come along that actually lets him show off some acting chops is awesome.
I love Reign Over Me. I love Click. I like Click. I want more range out of him because I feel like he's had his 10-year vacation. I would really like to see him do some work that is proud, because I think he's fantastic, and this movie looks like it's an opportunity for him to show he's not just with Kevin James and X location here. So I think it's a really good opportunity for A24 to have a bankable star in a movie that's going to be a little stranger and also show some range. So from the studio side, from the actor gangster side, and I love good times, so I want more of that kind of feel. I love the universe. I like crime. I want to see more crime stories.
Someone's gonna clip that out and pass it around.
I can see the gif now. I like crime, but I like movies that tell that side of stories. I as much as I love the big superhero films and as much as I love the giant franchises, the world is dark and full of madness, and I want to see more of that. I want to see what you have to do to survive. I want to see people dealing with the worst of things and growing up in Lowell and like dangerous neighborhoods. I like stories like this to reflect things that are real, true to life experiences, like your adrenaline and your pulse and those things you experience when you're in these situations. I like when it's reflected on screen. I like sweaty palms and violence. So yes, thank you.
Felt wrong that you said the world is full of madness. Shouldn't it be
totally
terrors?
is. The world's mad.
I mean, you need a Game of Thrones reference in there, though.
Oh, is that a Game of
The night is dark and full of terrors.
I only watched season 8.
Oh.
I
right.
watched the first 3 episodes, The Red Wedding, The Death of Angry Batman Begins Boy, and season 8.
I mean, you watched some of the key episodes there, but you really should go back and
It's
binge.
just so rapey.
I mean, I can't excuse any of that. I am very happy you guys name dropped so many wonderful Adam Sandler performances, but I'm really upset that nobody gave Billy Madison a shout out. Like, how dare you?
Tones.
No, I'm just Billy Madison is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's what made me a huge Adam Sandler fan from day one. And we know what happens with some of his comedy movies as things progress. As you started talking about interviews, I flashed back to a delightful conversation I had with him, but it was for the movie Pixels, which smashed my heart into a million pieces. That movie could have been so much better than it was. But he has delivered some incredible performances all throughout his career, whether you like some of those comedy movies or not. And what he seems to be delivering in this trailer seems like, hey, it could pave the way to an Academy Award nomination, which I would love to see after all of the movies he's made. And I love how this trailer almost feels like it's in a world like adjacent to what happens in Good Time. Right. There's something about it where I feel like these two events could be playing out parallel to one another. And the thought of like a Safdie brothers cinematic universe thrills me, I think, more than it should.
It reminded me of Guy Ritchie, like how Guy Ritchie, all of his movies feel very akin to one another, and they're not at all. Like, somehow King Arthur feels like it could have snatched, like, hundreds of years later. Just the editing style, the color palette they used, all the flavors of that. So this reminded me very much of the Good Time trailer, where I was like, oh, a crime series? Like, 100 Bullets is a crime anthology comic. This reminded me of that opportunity with film, and it's an opportunity I really want Adam Sandler to come out swinging, so he finds that love for it again. I feel like he just has been doing a very similar thing, and I'd love to see him have a string of these kind of movies. And the supporting cast is crazy.
Oh
Liggett
my God,
Stanfield, The Weeknd's in this, it looked like. I think that was him. Like, the cast behind this looks
I was excited to see Idina Menzel in there because I'm a big fan of hers, and her last big movie role is, she's the voice of Elsa, but we don't get to see her on screen. So I feel like the last movie I've seen her in where she's there in the flesh is the Rent movie. And just because I really liked Rent growing up, I was going to love that movie no matter what, but I don't think that movie met the show's expectations there. But I'm happy to see her in this as well.
We just need a John Travolta crime boss to mispronounce her name. I just want that awkwardness. Whenever I think of Idina Menzel, I think of however he said her name or however I just said her name.
Adele Dazeem. I'm happy that I actually had to think about that for a minute.
I want that movie. I want that so bad in this universe.
I would be all for it. All right. You guys feel like taking some Twitter questions?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Twitter questions. I don't know what I'm talking about. These
Adele
questions
Dazeem.
are coming from the live chat. Yeah, Adele Dazeem has scrambled my brain officially. All right. How about this one from Redbeard420? Have you guys seen the new El Camino trailer? Yes.
The moment I could.
Yes. This is intense. I mean, like, I don't know why this surprised me so much. Maybe it's because I'm just so far removed from the last time I've seen a Breaking Bad episode, because to be honest, I didn't revisit anything. I watched the entire series and then just stopped. And actually, maybe it's because I stopped watching Breaking Bad and then I watched some of Better Call Saul, which has a different vibe to it. And now all of a sudden I'm like plunged back into this darkness, and just the way that it kind of like, it's not like a big reveal for Jesse Pinkman, but it kind of plays that way, where you only get a line of dialogue from him at the very end of it. And there's something about hearing his voice more so than seeing his face for the first time that I found very powerful. So I don't know. I just felt that this thing was cut in a way that built anticipation more than I could have expected.
I'm incredibly excited. I think that Vince Gilligan has proved that he is able to do things that a lot of people can't. Better Call Saul should not be as good as it is, and I think I like it even more than Breaking Bad, and I loved Breaking Bad. But a prequel series about a spin-off character who was kind of comedy relief, like it shouldn't work. And it's amazing. I used to live in Santa Fe and went to Albuquerque a lot. So every time
cool.
I see the shots, it's like, oh, I know I'm not supposed to have nostalgia for this, but
Breaking Bad is, I think, my only defiant hipster show. I watched the pilot on AMC, and I watched it from season 1. So it was the one show that I was like, it's my secret, it's my precious. And then it went to Netflix, and everyone started watching it, and I was like, no, the secret's out. But I guess it gets to keep going, but the secret's out. And it really felt like I'd lost something that was personal, because it was this weird show that not a lot of people were watching season 1. It had a short first season. It was really, but I was a diehard Malcolm in the Middle guy. So I just was like, Bryan Cranston's back, and then it was nothing like that, but I was enthralled, and I loved the fact that it was one of the first shows that I felt the Sopranos thing. I felt the adult drama thing, and I missed the Sopranos. I never got into a lot of those big shows, so Breaking Bad was my TV. I understand now. So to see this as a movie, which is more my medium, to see this as something that it will be in select theaters, it's this beautiful nostalgic happiness of when I was sitting by myself watching a show that no one cared about, and now it's to the point where Jesse Pinkman's getting a movie, and Jesse inspired way too many phrases for too long. I was that monster. So to see him as an adult and to see him grow up and to see the traumas he's been through, it just feels great. And Aaron Paul is the kindest dude in town. Aaron's great.
Figured out what your Halloween costume should be.
Oh, I've definitely been Jesse Pinkman before.
I'm just kind of realizing you could pull this off very well. Do you have pictures? I want to see pictures.
I've Pinkmaned up, and I've definitely, that expression was used way too often for 3 years.
This is exciting me too much.
I said bitch 867% more after the first 3 seasons. That shit was embarrassing.
Oh, no. All right. Well, you need to share a picture. I want to see it. All right. Next question here. Let's go with this one from The Prince That Wasn't Promised, who wants to know, what actress would you want to see as Catwoman? All the ones that we were talking about for She-Hulk are coming to mind just because that was the most recent superhero casting thing
Natalie
we had.
Dormer.
Ooh, okay.
I like her. She's got this mischievous smile, and she's got this she moves like a dancer. She's got this litheness, and I think Catwoman should have a presence to her. Natalie Dormer, I don't think is in enough. I want her to have a franchise, and I think she's very cat-like.
Sophia Boutella.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah.
Great.
Just speaking about cat-like maneuvers, the fact that she has the dance background,
Yeah.
I feel like she'd be able to nail the physicality, and she also is just an incredible actor too. Time and time again, I'm reminded of that. If you guys have not seen Climax, you should check that movie out. But I also thought she was a major bright spot in The Mummy, which is saying a lot.
On Hotel Artemis. I liked Hotel Artemis.
She's quite good in Hotel
fantastic
Artemis.
in
Yeah.
it.
I would say Ruth Negga.
Ooh, she's great.
I really, really like her. I think I saw somebody suggest that once upon a time and thought wow, I can totally see that.
Yeah, I'm into that for sure.
I like that idea. All right, let's see if we can come up with good ideas for this one as well. Riley Jack is asking, what other primarily comedic actor would you like to see take on a serious role? Who comes to mind?
He has before, but I want to see it in a larger sense. I want to see Nick Offerman in something.
Okay.
Very grounded, and I love when he gets to play the straight man to the comedy, but I'd love to see him in a straight up drama.
Okay, I'm very convinced that he can do just about anything. Mm-hmm. Who you got, Silas?
I'm going to say Nathan Fielder, who is just Nathan For You became one of my favorite shows ever, and the finale. I don't know if either of you watched it, but it's just this incredible movie to end the series, and I would love to see him do something serious. It's kind of funny because he's so deadpan that I don't even know if he can be serious at this point, because the more serious he is, the funnier it's going to be.
Does Amy Poehler do drama? I feel like I've never seen Amy Poehler in a drama. I'd like to see her because her book's great and she's so brilliant.
Nothing's coming to mind
there
right now.
There is a movie that I love, and it is comedy, but there's a very dramatic side that got panned by everyone, called Are You Here?
I remember that.
I loved it. It's Amy Poehler, Zach Galifianakis, and I can't remember who the third actor is, but it's just this sort of funny but also really biting, kind of depressing look at just being an adult and losing touch with your friends. And it was Matthew Weiner who did Mad Men. It was sort of
amazing.
like his movie, and nobody liked it.
So it goes sometimes, sadly. I'll just say an obvious one because she's already been doing this quite well. Melissa McCarthy. I mean, she's just another one who has built her name on a very specific type of movie. I mean, she's actually somewhat similar to Adam Sandler in that her foundation is her comedy roles. And then all of a sudden she does things like Can You Ever Forgive Me and St. Vincent, where she just shows that she is capable of like a million times more than you ever would imagine if you just saw those really popular movies that kind of got her name going. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, when I think about Bridesmaids, it's like, even though that is a very comedic role, there is a beautiful touch of like warmth and sincerity to that character that I think is what got her all the awards consideration that year.
I have a new number 1 draft pick.
Yes, please.
Sterling K. Brown. I want to see Sterling K. Brown in a full-on comedy. I want to see that man be funny because he's so good at
you're
making me
going the other
cry.
way now.
I want to have make me laugh. I want to see him in a comedy. Yeah, I'm switching it up because he. Did you see my buddy Mike Diva directed this The Lonely Island Bash Bros?
I did not see that.
It's The Lonely Island did like a 20-minute short about Mark McGuire, like the Bash Bros, the baseball guys, and Sterling K. Brown has like a 3-minute comedic bit right in the middle of it, and he's wearing like a bathrobe and singing, and I was like, this man, like where did this guy come from? I want to see Sterling K. Brown.
Oh, I feel like I had so many names going the reverse way just because I saw a lot of sad movies at TIFF, and all I kept thinking was to tell that individual, like, you need a comedy in your life or something like that. There was someone that was like right on the tip of my tongue too as you brought that up, and now it's gone. It's out into the world. I'm sorry, you'll never do a comedy now.
Any
You're
dramas?
just gonna
Okay.
live in darkness.
I don't know. The one that just comes to mind is I know Harrison Ford has always said he wants to do more comedies, and it's like, well, why doesn't somebody give him a goofy comedy where he's the lead?
Oh, you know who I was thinking of? I was thinking of Alex Wolff. Alex Wolff has done some lighter fare, but just recently I interviewed him at TIFF for a movie called Castle in the Ground, which is about an opioid addiction and him losing his mother. But the other movie that he was recently really hot for is Hereditary, and it's like 2 super dark roles back to back. So I'm like, give this kid something fun to do.
Yeah, that is harrowing.
I don't know. That just came to my mind right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the direction, is like sad to light and light to sad, because we've seen like so many great performances go that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sterling K. Brown in a comedy though. Stand by.
All right, I'm sold. All right, that's
Angry
where we're
Birds 2.
Silas. Oh well, actually, I mean, I heard good things
seen it
about.
yet.
I heard good
Did
things
you like
about
it?
that movie. Yeah.
I mean, I liked it better than the first one. I thought it was fun. I mean, I'm not going to rush out to see it again, but I was like, this was pretty good.
Dorian really liked it too. I have to put it back on my list.
2 amazing metaphors for
Yeah.
Twitter, and then a recommendation of Angry Birds 2.
I'm sold.
Hot takes. So
I'm sold, and we're out of here. We're leaving you. So I'm going to thank Silas and Coy for joining us on this Tuesday. Adam in the booth, Dorian in the live chat. Thank you so much for your hard work. And I'm going to let you guys know, super cool episode of Collider Live coming your way. Actually, funny thing that I mentioned Alex Wolff. His brother Nat Wolff is going to be on the show along with Alex Rubin. So check that out at 10 a.m. PT today. And also, don't forget to like and share this episode of Movie Talk, and tune in tomorrow bright and early for a brand new one.